Okay. Okay. We're going to admit everybody. We're going to turn on the recording. Stephen Berkson, you have the floor.
Thank you. And for everyone who's here, there's no bell tonight. I'm on a emergency parental health care visit in Illinois, and I wasn't able to bring it with me. So the January 6th meeting of the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors will come to order, and we will begin with announcements. Are there any announcements? Please raise your hand in chat. Last call for announcements. John Steinhardt.
Yeah, just wanted to wish everybody in the Fair family a happy new year.
Okay. AJ.
Yeah, I have some sad news to pass along. Sandy Gonzalez, she was a longtime friend of mine, Saturday Market employee, and longtime member of this organization. Um, I hope that others will take an opportunity to say something about her. We lost her about a little bit more than a week ago, suddenly, and it's sad when members of our community um, that are so beloved. She has been a part of this community for more than 30 years, maybe even 40 years. And so, RIP. Thank you, Sandy.
You. And Sandra.
Okay, I also have some sad news. Connie Epstein passed over the holidays, and she was one of she played a pivotal role in the Oregon Country Fair. She was honored at the 50th as a major contributor. She was a transition person between the fair being a fundraiser for the school and turning it into a community event. And she's also been involved in the community. She moved down to Reno 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, where her son lives. So anyway, we should honor her passing, and she will be missed. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. AJ, do you have more?
Yes. I would need to announce that the resignation of our membership secretary, Stephen Dyerkoff. Thank you for your service, Stephen.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Last call for announcements. Raise your hand in chat. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes of the December 2nd, 2024 meeting. Is there any objection to adopting the minutes as submitted? Any objection to adopting the minutes as submitted? Okay, seeing none, the minutes are adopted by unanimous consent. Agenda, review, amend, and approve. As discussed before the meeting, I'm going to recommend that we take the guidelines as an entire package and ask for what particular parts of the guidelines any board member wants to separate from the group, then pass all the non-controversial ones and take the separated ones and discuss them individually. Is there anyone who has anything for agenda review, amend, or approve, including that process? Raise your hand in chat. Last call. John Steinhardt. You're muted.
Give me a second to find the email here. Yeah, there are I would like to break out.
Let's wait till that comes up. When it comes up on the agenda.
I thought you were just asking for it now.
No, no, no. That's the process. We'll do it when it comes up.
Good, fine.
Okay. Any, seeing no further announcements, I believe, correct? Nobody's going to raise their hand at the last second. We're going to move on to membership comments. I'll remind everyone that we don't talk about any personnel matters, including volunteers as personnel.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we see you. Raise your hand in chat if you have membership input. Please raise your hand in chat. John Pincus. John? I'll remind everyone, please turn off your cameras unless you're called on to speak. So when you're speaking, you can have your camera on, but otherwise only board members. John, last call for John. Are you saying Yaman has an announcement? We're going to go back to the announcements for Yaman. Okay.
Should I start my, should I unmute?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
meanwhile,
Sorry.
and meanwhile, John Pink is trying to
Okay.
get audio going. Go ahead.
So, okay. Okay. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I put my glasses on. I'm here to announce my birthday benefit bash. When Hurricane Gilbert struck Jamaica in the 1980s, I organized a series of benefit concerts because I couldn't sit by and do nothing, and I had to help my Jamaican friends. So I had my Dragon Rose Band do a series of benefits to help them. When I moved here to Oregon 10 years ago, I thought I can either do birthday concerts or turn my birthdays into birthday benefit bashes. And in the last 10 years, I've done benefits to help the Egan Warming Center, Women's Space, and my bass player's wife who had cancer. This year, I'm doing the benefit for Tim McLaughlin's musical summer camp for children. Tim is a well-known musician around here, and he will be sitting in with my Dragon Rose Band, who is my band at the booth. If any of you have been to my booth, you've heard my band. We're going to have some wonderful music, including Grateful Dead, reggae, and some originals. So the benefit will be Saturday, January 25th, the last Saturday of January. So it's Saturday, January 25th at 8 o'clock. Please come on down and help us celebrate the new year and help the musical summer camp for children. And thank you all very much. And Happy New Year to everybody. And should I disconnect myself with the mutes and the videos and turn
Mute the
myself
video.
off, please?
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Yaman.
Or
Okay.
can you, I will do that now. Thank you. Thank you.
So John Pincus, you were unmuted and now you're muted. Do you want to speak? Can we hear you? We're not hearing you, John. I'm going to go on to Ann, and if you can resolve it, otherwise you can go ahead and put something in the chat as an exception. But we're not hearing you, John. Ann, go ahead.
Hi there, it's Anna Scott, chairperson at the Lump Committee, speaking in favor of two motions tonight that you have in front of you. The first one I'd like to speak in favor of.
I gotta ask you to hold up. So normally we ask you to speak to the motion when it's on the floor. So now member input is only for items, I should have said so, that are not on the agenda. So you'll have an opportunity to speak to those motions when they come up. Is there any member input on issues not on the agenda? Yaman Aaron Kenton is asking, where is your bash? While we wait for that answer.
I believe it's at World Pies
Okay.
on the 20th. Did he mention the date?
The
The
25th at
21st?
World Pies. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
25th,
The one-
January
Yeah, World Pies used to be called Cosmic Pizza. 8 p.m. World Pies, Cosmic Pizza. Thank you. Saturday, the 25th of January. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Ann, be sure to
And
raise
I will
your
stop
hand.
video and get myself a thank you.
So Ann, just be sure to come in with member input on the motions that you wanted to speak to. Is the last call for any member input on items not on the agenda. Is there any member input for items not on the agenda? Please raise your hand in chat. Okay, we're going to move on then to staff report, executive director's report.
Thank you, Stephen. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. We're very excited to get started on the 2025 event. I've got a lengthy report, so to kind of get you guys all up to speed as to what we'll be working on over the next 6 months to bring this event online. So we'll start with budget dates. We're currently still working with the budget committee. We have a meeting on the 7th and the 8th, which I forgot to note that we have one tomorrow night. We also have a coordinators budget meeting on January 15th at 6:30. Then we will finalize the budgets for the board on January 22nd. The board will vote on the 2025 budget expenses. They've already approved the revenue side on Monday, January 27th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Capital expenditures are due to your staff liaison on by January 31st, 2025. We will then shift into capital improvement review by the budget committee on February 5th and February 12th. The board will vote on capital improvements requests on Monday, March 3rd at the regularly scheduled board meeting that day. Coordinator budget sheets will be emailed to coordinators the week of February 3rd. That's shortly after the board approves the budgets on January 27th. Capital improvement projects that staff are currently working on. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is kind of the top ones that we're working on. We're working on Gators, a skid steer / tractor, the winery house carryover, a pole barn at the winery, continuing improvements at Doug's Green, conference table, conference room lighting, finish up the bathroom there and do the exterior painting. Also installing a 220-volt electric car charging station. The Eugene office, we want to remove the berm and install a security system. We want to do a deep clean of the 6-packs. People tend to shove really big items in there, unfortunately. And so ever so often we need in there and actually people to go in with hazmat suits and clean that up. So that's a major project. We need more laptops, not only for the sticker booth, but for staff. We're going to have the water project carryover. We're going to do more porta potty purchases that we're asking the board and budget committee for. There's a vaudeville carryover. We're asking for an EAB or Emerald Ash Borer budget. We're looking at Cow Palace retrofit to finish up our SUP. We're looking at the hub roof carryover and also a stewardship carryover. We have more that we've added since I wrote this report, but that's kind of a top view of what we're looking at. It's going to be another big capital improvement project year. These are 1 years and some of these long-term projects that will fit into a 5-year plan. For the management crews that we are working on projects or transitions with, we're working with Main Camp Wristbanding, a sticker booth transition, which is Elders and Entertainment. We're working with IT, water, showers. We're talking about adding backlot showers back in. Cruise services, we're talking to Prefair Kitchen about meal registration, talking about a toilet team and Doug's Yard dog team. That's to take inventory of all of our lumber up there. The Teddy Bear Picnic, as I've mentioned, is this year going to be on Saturday, August 16th. There will be camping allowed on that Saturday. Culture Jam 2025 will be Thursday, July 31st through Thursday, August 7th. That is tentative, but I think they're solid, right? We're getting closer to having it be confirmed as solid. And then Spring Fling will be May 10th, 2025 at Wow Hall at 6 p.m. As in marketing, we're working on the guidelines, which the board will approve tonight, and we'll be breaking them into 2 booklets. We'll have a general booklet that is for all participants, and we'll print 2,000 of those. And then we're going to print a book specific to booths for food and crafts, and we'll print 1,000 of those. We're going to pull the map out and no longer inserted into the guidelines, and those will print 2,500 or more as needed, and they will be separate and available at QM and various other places. So we'll have plenty of those maps available. You don't have to get the guidelines to get the map anymore. We'll be sending those to the designer on February 1st and to the printer on March 1st. Craft applications are going live on today and will be open through April 1st. Food applications, there's potentially no openings this year. Potentially, we don't know the answer fully, but that application is currently on the org site. And there is a mandatory food meeting on June 4th, 2025. Teen crew applications will go live to request teens on their crews in February of 2025, and teen requests to be on a crew will open on March 1st and run through April 15th. Entertainment applications have been on the website since April 1st, or excuse me, November 1st, and will run through February 15th, 2025. Contracts that we are currently working on, LTD, we're meeting with them tomorrow. First Student, United Site Services is bidding on our porta potties. Honey Buckets are bidding on our porta potties, and above all, sanitation is bidding on our porta potties. We hope to have that contract signed at the end of January. We'll be working with Lane County Sheriff's Office again this year for all of our security needs, pre and post days during the event in the evening, when we close. Western Flaggers, City for a banner, Dodeca Art Barn for our water and for the art barn, the Ritz Sauna, Whitebird Medical, Life's Best Intents, T-shirts. Coordinator eBlast will go out for size requests in January, and the date to submit size requests will run from January 15th through February 15th. So coordinators, keep your eye out for that. We're looking at printer contracts for printing of the T-shirts. We usually use 2 printers. Commemorative Sales, working with that crew to get that all laid out. Of course, Zumwalt Campground, Emerald Valley Towing, Paragon Water, the guideline printing, whether we'll use one of 2 local printers, Moulines, Sunbelt Rentals, United Rental, Penske Rentals, Enterprise Rentals, Water Meter Rental, Afton Tickets. We will build the event in their system in January, and tickets will go on April 1st. And we change full price tickets on June 16th, 2025, and also Cascade Ice. Service providers that we work with, we'll be working with Veggies on the Run, Santa Clara Farm Stand, Lane County Health Inspectors, ATMs, Sherman Brothers Ice, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and Breathing Media. Permits we'll be working on will be the Farside, Zen Acres, Alice's, Marshall, and Hinda's. Camping permits, we'll be doing a Lane County Outdoor Assembly permit for Farside. We'll be working with ODOT for our right-of-way. We'll be working with the Lane County for a right-of-way as well. We'll be working on a Dance Pavilion building permit, Chela Mela building permit, and a Xanadu building permit. Those are the buildings that were built that we need to go back and get up to code, permitted. We started a supply list. Obviously, we buy toilet paper, paper towels, Botany soap, which is the hand soap that we use at main camp, which is biodegradable. And then durables, we buy forks, spoons, knives, labels, and it's every year. So that's just kind of a snapshot of what we're working on from the staff perspective. And ready and excited to get this ball rolling. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. And the treasurer's report, Hillary.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. Sounds like staff's been very busy. Thank you very much. I know the board members have been busy. And just in my experience, in my Chela Mela world, I'm hearing people flexing out of their slumbers and their hibernation and beginning to think about the fair. So I'm sure that's happening everywhere. And really looking forward to more conversations, more dreams, more talks. And I won't do much of a treasurer's report now because, as Kirsten said, we have a lot of dates coming up with the board, including that next board meeting at the end of January, which we'll talk mostly about the budget. And so at that point, we'll talk a lot. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Okay, we normally we haven't always done hands here, and we're trying to do reports as reports. Sandra, did you have like a question or something? Is that why you raised your hand? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Kirsten. I wanted to know if the staff and the food committee are exploring the need for more food booths I think that, I've been concerned about this for some amount of time now. The lines are really long. We have long areas of food deserts out there. And so I just wanted to know what kind of energy you're putting into evaluating whether, where we are on the food booths. I think we need more, but, there's a lot of work to be done between that thought and if we do or don't.
Yeah, so every year about this time, the food committee debates whether we have an opening for or a booth to fill, but there is still the opportunity for people to declare that they're not coming. So there can be a last minute push to find a food booth to fill a food booth for somebody who has declared they're taking a leave of absence per se. But honestly, there is no discussion about specific expansion of food booths at this time. But I will definitely make sure that the food committee starts to take that up under consideration. Thank you.
Okay, next is there any objection to accepting the committee reports as submitted? If you have an objection to accepting the committee reports as submitted, raise your hand in chat. Okay, seeing none, the committee reports are accepted by unanimous consent. And we're on to old business. The approval of the guidelines, 2025 guideline policy changes, sponsored by Paxton, Teresa, and AJ. We're going to move to adopt them as a whole and then have a process for, at the moment, I'm inclined to say if any one board member wants to take one out, then we'll take it out. Is there any disagreement with that? Okay, so
I would like
to move to adopt the guidelines.
I'd like to move to adopt the guidelines as a whole.
Okay,
For
Paxton moves.
2025.
Is there a second? Anybody want to second the guidelines?
I'll second it.
Especially since it's a mandatory piece of business. I think I saw John Alexander move first. So moved by Paxton and seconded by John Alexander. Are there any board members who'd like to separate any of the guideline changes? John Steinhardt?
Yeah, I'd like to separate out 1, 6, 9, and 12.
Okay, are there any other requests to separate any of the other guidelines in the packet? If there is, raise your hand in chat. Last call. Okay, seeing none. Is there any member input on the guideline changes, not including the proposals 1, 6, 9, and 12? And Anna, if this is one of the things you wanted to speak to and you're not sure which 1, 6, 9, and 12 is, just go ahead and raise your hand. Is there anyone who wishes to discuss any member input? Anna, go ahead.
Hi again, it's Anna Scott. Just letting you know that there should be a request from the LUMP committee in the guidelines that we want to tell you we fully support. We think this will be very helpful for everyone to understand and learn about land use management at the fair. Thank you very much.
Do you know which one you're specifically speaking to, Anna?
No, the copy of the agenda does not include the information. I'm so sorry. I would have been more prepared. I apologize.
It's all right. I'm just trying to make sure. Number 7.
I'm sorry, the board motion doc is on the .net site under the event of this board meeting. So you should be able to see the board motion document right next to the board agenda. So you can actually look at everything there.
I believe
it is number 7.
Yeah.
It is number 7.
Number 7. Thank you. Which is in the current discussion. John, are you saying you want to pull out number 7 now?
Yeah. Yes, I forgot about that.
Okay. Ann Bennett Rogers.
I support what Anna Scott said about the lump guideline presentation. Thank you very much. I think it's really important, especially when I read things in emails that say, well, let's just plant this. We need to be planting native plants and pollinator strips of native plants. Thank you. And this guideline change supports that.
Last call. Is there any member input on the guideline changes except for 1, 6, 9, 12, and 7? Seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on the guideline changes as a whole, excluding 1, 6, 9, 12, and 7? Raise your hand in chat. Last call. Seeing no discussion and no one spoken against it, I will ask, is there any objection to adopting the rest of the guideline changes by unanimous consent? Any objection?
Hey, Stephen, let's do a roll call on that, if that's okay.
Okay. John Davis.
Yes, approve.
Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes.
John Gofsky.
Yes.
Okay. The guideline changes except for 1, 6, 9, 12, and 7 are approved unanimously. So we will go on to discuss guideline change number 1. Somebody like to make a motion to adopt guideline change number 1, registration from registration crew and fair management.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by AJ and seconded by, I saw Arna raise her hand.
Teresa.
Didn't Teresa? Okay, didn't sound like Arna. Okay, moved by AJ and seconded by Teresa. Unless there's objection. AJ, do you want to read the motion or discuss the motion at all before we go to member input?
I think we have, I think John
He's going to
raised
have
his
an
hand. Yeah.
amendment to propose.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to do that first?
Yes, let's go ahead and
John,
let John.
have you raised your hand? Okay, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to amend that motion to make it a lot easier to read, which I just put in the chat.
Okay. Is there a second to John's amendment?
Second.
Moved by John Steinhardt and seconded by Sandra Bauer. Is there any member input on this amendment? Any member input on this amendment? It's a little long. I'm afraid I can't go back and it'd be awkward to try and read the original. Seeing no member input, is there any board discussion on this change? Arna.
Thank you. I'm a little slow at getting my hand in chat. I don't like the amendment because it's leaving out some of the information that was in the, oh no, ignore me. Forget that. I take that back. Move on.
Okay. Any other board discussion?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think the only difference in here is adding in there at the end, in order to receive additional wristbands. And I thought that was clarifying. I was a little confused in the original language, and I do think that adding that in order to receive additional wristbands makes sense with the rest of that, the requirements for asking for additional wristbands. So I think it's a pretty minor change, but it does make it a lot clearer. I was confused, so.
Is there any further board discussion? Last call. Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. John Davis on the amendment to change guideline 1.
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna,
Come back to me, please.
Paxton,
No,
George.
just a second.
Okay. George,
No.
you want to vote? No?
Yes.
Okay. So
No.
no is
I
your vote.
no.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Would abstain.
and John Gowski,
Yes.
and Arna.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes with Paxton voting no and John Alexander abstaining. Now we are on to the revised guideline change 1, guideline 1. Is there any member input on the newly revised guideline change 1? I'm going to assume not. We'll give it a very short time here since it didn't speak to the amendment. Okay, seeing none, is there any board discussion on the newly revised guideline change 1? If so, raise your hand in
What
chat.
did we just vote on?
We just voted to change guideline change 1 to what was posted in chat by John.
Gotcha.
So now we're approving, now that that has been amended, we're simply going through the steps of actually approving then the guideline change as amended. Last call for board discussion on the guideline change number 1 as amended. Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. John Davis,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
No.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Yes.
and John Gowski.
Yes.
Motion passes with Paxton voting no. What?
I would like to change my vote to yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to guideline change number 6, which is the camping crew coordinator guideline change. Is there a motion to adopt this? Let's get the motion in first. Somebody want to move to adopt guideline change 6?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Arna and seconded by Teresa. So the chat is only for raising your hand, please, except for specific accepted uses, and George is here. So where we are, we're back to 6. It's been moved and seconded. Is there anyone who wants to speak to it before we open it up for amendment? I know we're going to do the amendment, John. Okay, seeing no board members doing that, go ahead, John.
Okay, I posted an amendment in the chat, except that I forgot the opening G. I'm a little concerned about this one. When I read the, hang on, I'm trying to find it. When I read the explanation.
Let's get the amendment on the table, and then you can speak to it. So
okay, I move to amend it to what's in the chat, except to add a G in the beginning because I forgot
correct. Understood. Is there a second? Is there a second to this amendment?
Oh, the changes are in all caps.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by John Steinhardt and seconded by Sandra Bauer. John, do you want to talk about your amendment?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that, you know, as an organization, we have carbon neutral goals, and all of a sudden we're having to talk about generator use, which has kind of crept up on us as opposed to being something that happened with intention. And when I read the explanation of this that's in the proposed guideline changes, it's explaining that it's doing this for Miss Piggy and Scofflaw. And I want to make that explicit because I don't want to all of a sudden have people running air conditioners in their tents with generators in Marshall's Landing or any of the other camping areas. I think that as an organization, if we're going to all of a sudden change to everybody needing electricity all the time, then we should think about infrastructure improvements to provide solar energy to people, not having hundreds of people running gasoline generators at the fair all the time. So the purpose of this change is to support what it said in the reason for this, which is that these generators are only for use in South and Miss Piggy, and we are not blanket saying you can run generators everywhere else at the fair. And I will say that I did talk to somebody before the meeting, and I would be happy to change the language here to include Far Side here also, because I guess that's another heavy generator use. But, you know, we're pretty packed together. I don't want everybody breathing gasoline fumes and listening to generator noise between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. every day.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to member input. Is there any member input on this amendment? Raise your hand in chat. Last call for member input. We got a full agenda. Remedios Rappaport. And Lisa, are you raising your hand or are you pointing at something?
I raised my hand.
Okay, yeah, hold on a sec. Lisa Cooley, were you raising your hand or pointing at something? Okay, we're gonna go on. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Sorry
and
about
speak.
that, Steve. I couldn't get my phone. It's not switching pages on me. I'm on
Okay.
my phone.
Did you want to speak?
I do. I just have
Okay.
a couple of questions, and I wholeheartedly agree with the no generator thing because that's where I live, is South Miss Piggy Lot. I think that because, and I'm just throwing this out here for general purposes because I have not had the chance to read the entire thing. We're one of the only crews that are out early and stay late, way out in South Piggy Lot. And people forget that we're way out there and we don't need the meals served or anything like that, but we are there from Tuesday through the following Tuesday. And we usually have some sort of a concert or a show or something on Thursday nights. And we do have to have a generator and we get the sound permit and everything on that particular Thursday night every single year. So I just don't want that to be conflicted with what the guidelines are, if that makes sense to everybody.
Thank you. And Remedios Rappaport, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Sorry for the interruption. It's your turn.
Wait, am I muted again? No, I'm
Nope, no, we hear you.
Okay. I am so sick of smelling gas fumes at the fair. I get more there than I do anywhere else all year long. So having more generators, it just to me seems wrong. I don't know if there's an emergency need for them because of the heat and people needing air conditioning that are in like mobile homes or something, or why are we needing to give people permission for generators? I have been shopping for my own van camping life and looking at these power stations now you can buy, you know, for 200 to 500 or 600. So you have power that's charged up in some lithium battery or something. But at least, I don't know, people really needed to have a generator, maybe they might want to invest in another power source of some sort. Whatever. Good luck with it. I just don't want more generators and more gas fumes around the fair site, if at all possible.
Thank you very much. Aaron Kenton.
Hi. I was reading the section about the dates you can camp, and I think it's all part of the same section 6 we're talking about. And it has actual dates, which I think change year to year. So maybe I'm missing something.
So the one thing is we're talking now about the amendment. So as soon as we wrap up the amendment, you can.
Okay.
speak
I
again.
thought we were in that guideline section.
No, we're in that section, but we're amending it. So we're
Okay.
specifically talking about the generator language right now.
Okay.
Sorry. Is there any other member input on the amendment to number 6? No, thank you. Okay, chat is only for hands, please. Just for hands. Do you want to speak, Marguerite, or not? Okay. Seeing no member input, we'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on this amendment to number 6?
Working on it. Put my hand up.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Just a question on the amendment, just to be sure, now that we've gotten some input. This does not change the meaning of it, allow or disallow anything that was previously allowed or not allowed before this amendment was made, correct?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're out of order here. Cassandra had a hand up, I thought, but
well, John was raising his hand. He didn't have it in chat.
Okay.
So I'll go to Cassandra next.
So
thank you, Stephen.
what the original language says is that generators may be only used in campsites between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. The change is to say they may only be used in Miss Piggy and Scofflaw campsites. So we don't actually have any policy on generator use at the fair. And what I'm trying to do with this amendment is to not have it get out of hand and give us some time to think about this for next year and to think about what sort of overall policy we want, because it was really too late to come up with that for this year.
Okay. Does that answer your question, John?
It does. I'll raise my hand in the chat for a follow-up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sandra.
Yeah, my question is, this looks like it's new language about generators in the bylaws. Is this the first time generators have been addressed in the bylaws?
Guidelines.
Guidelines?
Yes, this is an absolutely new section.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it's a good start for trying to establish, how to manage it. I know some generators are quite loud and others aren't. So I imagine at some point there might be noise issues as well. But yeah, I think that's, I think it's a good start. Thank you.
John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I wanted to say that if it was up to me, I would be trying to amend this to be what it is at other festivals I go to, which is no generators, period. But I think there's already established generator usage in the 2 areas of the fair that are RV parks now. And I do think we need to address this for next year, but since we're putting language about generator use in, I don't want to be giving tacit permission for generators anywhere in any campground anywhere from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that's the purpose of the amendment.
So Paxton.
I think you ought to add 2 things. I think the far side really should be included in that because that is an RV campground. And has been established that for several years, if not a couple of decades. But anyway, that, and we might consider the future and include outer limits or out of sight, whatever the winery property lot is called, because that has facilities for dealing with RVs in the future. So I would include both those, recommend that you include both those in your
you want to make amendment to
motion.
that effect, John? Or
I am happy to change my amendment, if we can skip all the time
well,
consuming.
we still need to do it because it changes the meaning. Do you want to make an amendment to change it to include the far side? And I would ask if you want the whole far side or the far side meadow, because a lot of the far side woods, I guess, I haven't taken a turn to speak yet, but I would say there's some fire hazard implications here, especially in a shutdown. You want it specific to the far side meadow or all of far side, and also to include outer limits? Paxton, do you want to make that amendment?
I'd be happy to make that amendment.
Okay. I think we can just do it with that language. I think you can certainly work that in. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Moved by Paxton and seconded by John Steinhardt. Is there any member input? So we are discussing now whether to add the far side meadow and the outer limits. Far side meadow, correct, Paxton? Not all of far side?
Right.
Okay, the
No, I
RV
agree.
part. Far side meadow and outer limits to this motion. Is there any member input? I'll keep tabs on where the list is at here for board members when we get back to the motion. Is there any member input on that change? Heather Kent.
I would be very careful about adding any areas that you don't already know you absolutely need. So if outer limits isn't one, I would not include it.
Thank you. Is there any other member input? And so I've raised my hand as member input here, and I'm going to be brief. This is my opinion. It's not me as the facilitator. I do think you should think twice about the outer limits because of the distance to fire. There's no fire protection out there specific. And, you know, until you actually are needing it, I think you might want to not include the outer limits, except for, you know, one specific to, unless you're turning it into an RV park now, RV campground now, and obviously there might be a need for an operational, but that's different from a camping generator. Thanks. So we're still in member input on this change. Any other member input? Raise your hand in chat. Ann Bennett Rogers.
The late, in discussions with the late Dennis Todd, we always felt, this was personal discussions and I support it, that the winery property would be a good place for RVs because there is available power there already. And so this should be considered in this motion as not as something to be aware of in the future. Thank you. And I just wanted to share the history of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further member input on the change to add the far side meadow and the outer limits to the motion, I'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on this change to the amendment? Raise your hand in chat. Is that John?
Yeah, I don't know if we can do this without having amendments stacked a pile deep, but if it's possible for Paxton to withdraw the outer limits from his amendment, I think that would be better. I would rather add it in the future when we need it than put it in now. Sounds like Paxton's okay with that.
I think that not a significant change to the meaning of the motion. I would, under the circumstances, I think that's fine.
So we'll just add part.
You're agreeing to that? Paxton,
I'm happy to remove outer limits from the motion.
So the motion is to add the far side meadow and only the far side meadow. And there's the list running away from me. Arna.
Hand down. That's what I wanted, was to take the far side out.
Paxton, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's why I had my hand up.
So there.
Okay.
Far side should or should not.
So I think we've moved away from you, Aaron. Do you?
I got in right at the end.
Well, I was going quick, so I'll give you a moment to speak.
I don't think we should have generators any place we don't need them.
Okay. John Alexander.
Well, I guess speaking to that, you know, I agree you know, that the adaptation of our guidance documents should be in line with our carbon neutral objectives. So I understand that concern. And I also am with y'all. I don't use generators and prefer when they're not running nearby. I guess my question here is with these amendments, it appears that these open the door to generators to
Okay,
places.
so
that-
we are only speaking to whether or not to add the Farside Meadow to this amendment at the
The
moment.
far side meadow. So we're only on the, all right.
Only discussing whether to add the Farside Meadow.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay,
Keep it-
any other board discussion on adding the Farside Meadow? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote on the amendment to the amendment.
Oh,
This is about adding the Farside Meadow, nothing else. Then we'll be coming back to the amendment itself and discussing it, so you can address that then. So John Davis, do you want to add the Farside Meadow to this amendment?
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George. George. You're muted if you're speaking. There you go.
yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander.
Abstain to the amendment to the amendment. Making sure
Okay,
I'm-
John Goski.
Yes.
Okay, the motion to add the Farside Meadow to this amendment passes unanimously with John Alexander abstaining. And now we are back to the amendment, which now includes the Farside Meadow with South Miss Piggy. Teresa, and I actually have a list going. Teresa, you're down a little bit on it. So John Alexander was actually on the amendment first.
So with all that,
Also scofflot, Stephen.
And Scofflaw.
fewer generators better. Is this amendment to the guideline opening the door that was not open before for generators in places, or closing the door where the door was already open?
I think the answer is there was no policy before, and this is establishing a policy. Is there
So this
any-
is setting limitations, and this is specific to only places that are mentioned in this amendment now are going to be where these generators are allowed regardless of whether they're needed in other places.
Kirsten, can you speak to this since you'd be the one enforcing the guideline?
Yeah, so we've never had a policy around generator use. Right now, you could use a generator anywhere. This is setting limitations saying generator use between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. is only allowed in these specific areas and campsites. This is not related to food booths or like that. This is only related to campsites, and the only campsites that will be allowed to use generators are the ones that are specified in this policy. It's to eliminate the use of generators in some of the more dense tent camping sites, because Scoff, Miss Piggy's, and Farside Meadow are where we put the mobile motorhomes, and motorhomes tend to have generators, and they run them, sometimes upwards of 24 hours a day, causing a lot of pollution, noise, and air. And so this is the camping crew's recommendation to start limiting where generators and when generators can be used on the site.
Okay, you're already on the list here coming up, AJ. Can I move on, John?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put my hand in the chat again.
Okay. So Teresa,
So, of course, I understand everybody's concern about overusing generators with fuel issues and smelling gas, and if there's fire hazards, that's very critically important to me. I'm just concerned that this generator use thing. Okay, so for example, there are generators that don't use fuel that are called generators that are solar. And so I'm concerned that we are throwing this out there without doing a deep dive into. I feel like it's going to make more problems for us because it's not, the type of generator is not being defined. And also, I know other camping areas where people have campers, and I don't know enough about why they're using them and if they have some medical reason. And if there is any way for them to apply for something in that purpose. And so I guess I'm feeling a little rushed about some of the language here, and I need to know more specifically what is meant by generator. And maybe I'm uneducated on this, but I just did a quick Google search, Gurgle search, that too. And, you know, I'm looking at a lot of non-fuel based words that, I mean, products that use the word generator. So I'm concerned about that.
Okay, I want to make sure everyone's clear that at the end of this, we're going to be talking about the generator policy in general. So the current motion on the floor is whether to add language to the current proposal to limit this to Scofflaw, Miss Piggy, and the Far Side Meadow, and not, you know, and then we're still going to end up talking about the motion again. AJ.
Yeah, I 1,000,000% agree with the concerns that Teresa has, specifically the medical point of view. We have not had an opportunity to do any kind of research on how many folks are using these generators for medical use. And then, yeah, I know there are a lot of generators out there that don't use gas now, especially, and they have it right on their label, generator. And so, hearing that this is new, I'm not in favor of just kind of throwing, excluding all of these other areas without having the information I think that we need to do that.
Thank you. I don't have, if I missed, let me see, because this is running away from me here. AJ, John Steinhardt, Paxton.
I guess I'm more of a technical person. Generators mean a specific thing, and there are other things than gasoline. There's propane, there's wood gasification, there's several other different processes, and we've actually considered using wood gasification in a large generator when we were talking about powering the dance pavilion originally in 2015. We had a proposal to come up with that. Those are generators. Solar batteries are not generators. Whether they call themselves or not, they're trying to do that to both sell stuff and to, quote, be kind of green alternative to generating power. In my neighborhood, we have one person that brings a large battery setup that Remedios, I think, was talking about, that works very, very well in our campground. To me, most generators really are integral in RVs, and that's probably the ones who are actually using the most, because they have electrical systems that they need to maintain. I also think the comment about medical uses is concerning, but most people that are really using a CPAP or things like that are using battery packs. I've seen a great migration in the fair to that, and if we can work well with our battery systems people that we've been talking about, there will be advantages to recharging and developing those kind of systems, which I think will be more productive, and that's a solar charged battery setup. But anyway, those are not generators. And that, I think, is what we're actually kind of moving towards. So
Okay.
I think this is appropriate for RVs. And that's what we're talking about.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, we want to keep it focused on whether or not to add this amendment, which changes, because we'll still be talking about generators at large. Kevin Levy.
I was going to say maybe, like with the discussion, I think maybe it would make sense to be a little more specific
because it's gas generators that we're trying to avoid, correct? And I would hate for folks to just see, to not bring an electric generator that they might be able to use as an alternative, because it seems we want to promote more of that, and so maybe that could help. But yeah, the medical pieces, I think, is something we should pay attention to. So maybe we should add gas specifically. So I'm not sure if that's what you were going for, Kirsten, or not. But thanks.
All right. Okay. Are you offering an amendment or just making a comment?
Just really trying to get the discussion out there more than anything for, just to make sure, get clarity on it.
AJ.
I'll make the amendment to make it specifically gas powered.
Point of order, we have a motion on the floor to add.
We're talking about the amendment, and AJ wants to amend the amendment to make it gas powered. Might I suggest petroleum or internal combustion, something along those lines, because propane and so forth are arguing that's gas.
Agree. I don't know the technical words for that, but anything that includes fire, I guess, gas, like a gas. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know.
Propane.
Petroleum powered internal combustion engines. How's that?
That.
Powered generators.
Yeah, that.
Okay, so you want to make a motion to change it to petroleum based internal combustion generators?
Yes.
I'll
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Yep. Okay.
Seconded, moved by AJ and seconded by Kevin. Is there any member input on changing this to be very specific about fossil fuel based generators? John Pincus.
Yes, can you hear me this time?
Yes.
Yes. I think the division really should be between generators or things calling themselves generators that emit fumes and other types of things like solar or batteries. Because some of the other alternatives that Paxton mentioned can be just as problematic as gas in terms of impact on other people. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. Is there any other member input on this change to specify petroleum-based internal combustion powered generators? Remedios Rappaport.
I think the amendment to the amendment is excellent, so it's very clear that we're talking about fuel burning generators, as you mentioned, with that terminology that catches it all. And that way it'll be clear that that's what we're controlling. We're not, combustion, what did you call it? Fire induced, whatever your language is. Solar and battery powered are not a part of that picture. And I think it's really good to make it clear, because a lot of our members go off on tangents and freak out and get misinformed. And I think a lot of clarity makes it easier for people to grasp and, understand and make good choices. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to raise my hand. This is me, not as facilitator, me as a member. And I'm just going to quickly say regarding what John said, I don't necessarily disagree. However, we all have campfires. We have lots of campfires out there. We have lots of other wood burning. So a wood burning for generator is somewhat of a different beast in that regard. That's all I have for member input. Any further member input? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to board discussion, and I have Paxton and then John. This is specifically about specifying the kinds of generators that we are addressing.
My hand was up before Paxton and the other John.
Sure, go ahead then.
I'm surprised that this has become an issue before we talked about change number 12, where I actually had a definition of generator, which I sent to the board this afternoon, so you've seen it. I'm amazed that, of course, Paxton and I agree on what a generator is and isn't. So I would like to say only solar, battery, and human-powered electricity sources are permitted. Why? Because I'm a geek, and it would scare the crap out of me if somebody brought an RTG to the fair. That's not a petroleum burning thing, but really radiothermal isotope generators, I don't want them at the fair. So I think we're talking solar, battery, and human powered electricity sources. And if we can make that the amendment, I'm happy with it. But you know, there's a lot of generators out there that don't burn petroleum that are way scarier than petroleum.
Okay, well, we can, you know, so do you want to make that an amendment to the amendment?
Can we just insert it so that we can get done tonight?
Well, no, well, the thing is, to make these conversations.
Okay. I
move
to amend the amendment to the amendment to define generator as solar, battery, and human powered electricity sources.
They're not generators.
I know, but everybody else thinks they are, so that's the problem.
Okay.
But then you're setting up
So no,
something that's
no dialogue, but your
Sorry.
amendment doesn't make sense, John. So say it one more time. Because it's the reverse of what we're doing.
Okay. So hang on, I need to get my thoughts together. Why don't you put me back on the stack in a bit?
Okay. All right.
I'm getting lost in the pile here.
Okay. So Paxton.
I would just leave it as gas. Gas covers natural gas. It covers, even in reality, wood gasification is turning wood into gas and then burning it in a generator. I mean, gas is all comes from petroleum-based stuff. So almost all the generators out there that we're concerned with running on either diesel, gasoline, or propane. All those are petroleum stuff. I think trying to redefine it is a little bit silly. I'm happy with just gas generators.
Steve, can I ask
Well,
that the amendments to the amendments to the amendment actually get posted in the chat? Because that's my problem. I don't know what we're talking about.
So I don't have specific
That's
language.
why I put my hand up so that I could read the current version that I have been tracking.
Okay, go
You guys
ahead. 'Cause
like
that's
to
all. That's what I was
Hear
gonna do.
that? Okay. So the amendment says generator use in campsites. Petroleum-based internal combustion generators may be used only in Farside Meadow, South Miss Piggy, and Scofflaw campsites between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Generators must be located within your own camping area, and not in a common path or access way adjacent to your camp. Never leave generators operating unattended. Please be considerate of your fellow campers and minimize generator use. Only solar, battery, and human-powered electricity sources are allowed in all other locations. That's kind of where I was at.
We are now, yeah, so that is, so the last part there, did you add that or was that?
I did. That was based on what John Steinhardt had said.
Okay,
I will
so
pop that into the chat just so you guys
I
can
think,
see
yeah,
it.
so let's hold on a minute. That's fine, but that's really a different, are you asking to amend it to include that? Is that the language you're looking for, John Steinhardt?
Yeah, I would go for that.
Okay,
Because
so that keeps the current amendment and simply adds to it.
Yes.
Okay, by adding additional language. Is there a second to John's amendment to the amendment? Now we're really on amendment to amendment. Is there a second to John's change? Arnis seconds. Okay, so moved by John Steinhardt and seconded by Arnis Shaw to add the language regarding human-powered, battery-powered, and solar-powered at the end of this, in addition to specifying the kinds of generators that are being addressed. That is there any member input on that? I'm not going to wait very long. Is there any member input on that? Okay, only hands in the chat, please. Appreciate the love, but Hillary, go ahead.
I'm RV ignorant, but would an RV use power that's like its own motor that's integral to it, that's not a separate generator? Would that be something that needs to be included as well?
Can I speak to that question?
Heather, okay, well, I'm on member input at the moment. Heather Kent.
That's a really good question, Hillary. I mean, I'm not RV ignorant, and Yes, the short answer is yes. I could turn on my RV and I couldn't get all the power that I needed to run my 3 roof air conditioners and my, giant converted bus or something. But I could get around your rule by turning on my engine to charge some of my batteries. Yes.
But
Okay,
I'm
back to,
sorry.
is there any other member input on this change to the amendment? Okay, no member input. We're going to go back to the board, and correct me if I'm wrong. So we are discussing John's change to the existing proposed amendment. And John Alexander, go ahead. You're muted.
You're muted.
All right. Now that we're well deep into the amendment process of, I think we've gone from a little bit of wordsmithing to actually scoping and discussion about the context of this motion, which is going to result in both limiting and opening the door to different things. I think we're a little bit beyond wordsmithing, and without dialogue for each of the different ideas that people have, I would suggest that we either give this to a subcommittee and have them fix it. I think we know where we're all going with this thing, but there seems to be consequences to this that are more far-reaching than we thought they would be through a sweeping change of the guidelines in a limited fashion. That's either going to open the door, whether this amendment to the amendment or the amendment, or the whole darn thing is going to open the door to interpretation of where people will be limited, where they used to be able to do things, or I'm allowed to do this here now. Nobody ever said I was, so try taking it away from me later. I just think that there's consequences here that are beyond our ability to do this through Robert's rules amending process.
Well, okay, and so I'm gonna go to John Steiner when I'm gonna clarify what we're talking about, because this is, I hear a lot of tongue in cheek about amending, but this is a proposal to limit generators. The first amendment was to specify the locations or the types, and now there is a first location, then types, and now there's a discussion about adding a specific permission for solar or a specific restriction everywhere this doesn't address to solar, battery, or human-powered generation. So this is about adding that to the motion to specify internal combustion generators as not being allowed. And I have John Steinhardt next, then AJ, then Arna.
Call the question on the amendment at the top of the stack.
Okay. Is there a second to call the question? This would be to end discussion on whether or not to add only solar power and vote on it.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. The question has been called and seconded to end discussion on whether or not to add only solar powered battery and human powered electricity sources are allowed in all other locations to the amendment that specifies petroleum based internal combustion engine generators. John Davis.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Sorry. Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Abstain.
John Govsky.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with John Alexander abstaining. So now we are back to whether to amend this motion to specify specifically petroleum-based internal combustion generators and add to the end of it that only solar-powered, battery-powered, and human-powered electricity sources are allowed in all other locations.
What did we just vote on? To
What we
end the
voted on was
conversation?
adding to the end of this amendment, only solar-powered, battery-powered, and human-powered electricity sources are allowed in all other locations.
So if we voted to end that discussion, well,
Now we're
we're
on this.
opening it up again?
No,
No, we're voting on it.
we're back to the main amendment. So somebody
Okay.
could call the question on the main amendment. I don't believe I have a stack of any at all at the moment. Let me see.
Steve did
My
just vote to
hand
call
is
the
up to
question.
call
We
the
haven't
question.
voted on the amendment.
Stephen.
Yeah, can we call the question on the amendment?
Yeah, my hand is
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry,
Question.
because that was a question. Trying to keep up.
And my hand's up too, before Sandra even.
So this is to vote to whether or not to add only solar powered, human powered, and battery powered sources are allowed in all other locations. John Davis,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
No,
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 Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Abstain.
John Gowski.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes with AJ voting no and John Alexander abstaining. So now what we are discussing is changing the language in the proposal to specify the kinds of generators that are being discussed. We've already amended it to include specific locations, so we are only discussing limiting it to the kinds of generators being discussed and the kinds of generators that are allowed elsewhere, which are solar or electricity allowed elsewhere, which is solar power, battery, or human powered. And help me out here. Arna, did you just raise your hand? I think you're the first.
Yeah, I had my hand up. I put it up again because I wasn't sure.
Well, I'm not sure
Okay.
where I'm at in the list here because there's enough of them.
Well, I
first.
had spoken to my hand being up
Go
here,
ahead.
so I don't know.
Go ahead.
So we're speaking to the whole motion now, correct?
No, we're speaking to my
Speaking to
amendment.
whether to
Change.
We're still speaking to the amendment?
So hold on, time out. Let me clarify. We have already amended it to specific locations. We are speaking as to whether or not to change it to specify internal combustion generators and specify only human, battery, and solar powered electricity is allowed in other
No,
campuses.
we just approved that.
No, we just approved adding that to the amendment.
Get to call the question on this amendment.
So is there a second to call on the question? I see Teresa. This question's been called by Arna and seconded by Teresa. John Davis.
Yes.
Let me make clear. We are voting on changing the proposal to the language that was just posted in its entirety. And then we will vote on that as being the proposal. Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Aren't we supposed to be voting on calling the question?
That's what we're doing.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
This is about whether to end debate on that discussion. Sorry if I misspoke. George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
I don't even freaking know anymore.
We're speaking.
Where we at? Where we at? So I'm guessing I'm gonna stay abstain because I don't know. It's
We're
really
voting.
confusing right now, to be
Okay,
honest
we're
with you.
voting on whether or not to end discussion on the amendment.
I'm abstaining because I don't know
Okay.
where we're at.
Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes.
John Gowski.
Yes.
Okay. So now we are back to the amendment as amended. So it's as amended. It's been posted in the chat. And the only changes to it, so this is the same generator language that was in the packet, and you have changed it to say only in Farside Meadows, South Miss Piggy, and Scofflot. And now you've also changed it to include generator to specify internal combustion generators and to say that only solar, battery, and human powered electricity sources are allowed in all other locations. That's what we're discussing, whether or not to make that amendment.
We called the question.
No.
We voted on calling the
We amended the
question.
motion. This is the motion now, right?
Right.
But we just voted on calling the question, Stephen.
We called the question and then we actually voted on the amendment that we called the question on.
Yeah.
Back to the original amendment that John put forth in his emails earlier today.
We just finished voting on call the question.
Okay, everybody pause. Everybody pause. Everybody pause. Let Stephen get us back together for a second.
Thank you. Okay. So what we are, let's make sure, in case I'm mistaken here, if we ended the discussion, we can have a vote on whether or not to add the internal combustion engines and the solar powered language to the end. Make sure I didn't miss something there. So we're going
Right.
to vote on that directly based on a call to question, and then that'll be what we'll be discussing. So do we want to change this to specify internal combustion engines and specify that only battery, solar, and human-powered electricity is allowed in other locations? That's the question. That's how the motion will be changed if we vote yes. John Davis,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ. This is about changing the proposal from what's written to the language that we've just discussed.
Okay. I'm gonna come back to me, please.
Sure. Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander.
I am abstaining.
Okay.
Can
And
I ask one clarifying question to you, Stephen?
sure. Especially if it's not.
So did we fully discuss the last part of the restriction to the power, the last part of the motion that says human powered?
You'll have another opportunity to discuss it because it will become the main motion here when we finish the amendment, which looks like it's going to pass.
Okay.
But it was part of the discussion, but now it will still be on the main motion, so it'll still be open for discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Then yes.
Okay. And John Govsky.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to change the language of number 6 specific to generators to what was posted in the chat has passed unanimously with John Alexander abstaining. So now that is the motion on the floor. The entire package of number 6, which includes the generator language as amended. Is everybody clear on what we're talking about now? Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm Anna. I'm your recording secretary,
Yeah.
and I am confused by one thing that I'm sorry to interject, but the discussion about combustion engines, I don't see that in what's posted in the chat, and so maybe I'm missing it. Is that in there, Kirsten?
Yeah.
So that was that was one of the amendments. The first amendment was about specifying the locations.
Yes, it's at the very top. It says petroleum-based the very first sentence. It says
Just put it at the
generator
top.
use
I
in campsite.
Okay.
Period.
I thought it was going to be
Then
somewhere else.
petroleum-based
Top and the
internal
bottom at the same time, so that makes it harder. Okay, so now the entire number 6, including the language that was just specified as for generators, just amended for generators, is what's on the floor. Is there any member input? Member input on that motion? John Pincus.
Hopefully you can hear me. I really appreciate all the amendments, and especially the one saying that solar, etc., was allowed. But among the other allowed sources, you might want to have grid power because certain campsites, particularly elders and 4A, use grid power. So if you could just add that to the amendment, then we wouldn't be having kerfuffles later on. Thanks. Or to the motion.
Thank you, John. Is there any other member input? Last call for member input. Aaron Kenton.
Okay, I think now is the appropriate time to mention the dates in part of section 6, where it says when you can camp at the fair. Those dates change every year. So somehow that needs to be described so that it would be accurate on any given year rather than have to change the guidelines every year to make it accurate. That was my only comment on that.
Thank you very much. Any other member input?
Stephen, we have a hand up in the top left corner here.
Man Puppet, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to be a little more specific on crew operations, for example, I can remember, I think it was maybe 2012, 2013 when we had a kind of a big water flood up by Pooh's Corner where we ran a small generator to pump out the water. Is that going to affect working crews?
Not what this is about.
Nope.
Okay. Last call for member input. All right. Seeing none, I show Arna, John Alexander, Sandra, and AJ. Is there any?
I was ahead of Arna there.
Okay, John.
I'm ahead of Arna too.
Okay, well, the list of people putting
It
stuff
goes
in.
Aaron and then me.
Okay, except Aaron was member input, so I was trying to extract the list out of that.
Right.
So let's start with John Steinhardt, then Sandra Bauer, then Arna Shaw.
You know what's coming. Call the question.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
I'll second.
Okay, so John Steinhardt calls the question, and Arna has seconded in favor of ending the discussion and on the entire item number 6 and voting on it. John Davis.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
No, I think this is an inappropriate use of the calling the question.
Thank you. George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
I agree with Paxton. No,
Okay.
this is going to change people's situation. We should have.
That's
I mean,
We're not supposed
but
to
we
be-
didn't even get to have a discussion. So we talked about this before.
It's not debatable.
It's out of order to talk about, to justify these votes because the whole point is to end discussion. Teresa, or whether or not to. Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
No.
And John Gofsky.
Yes.
Okay, so I believe that passes with three noes, correct, Kirsten? The motion passes with Paxton, AJ, and John Alexander voting no. So I'm sorry, the reason that we can't talk about your vote is because the whole point is whether or not the talking is supposed to stop. So we're now going to vote on the entirety of number 6 as amended under generators. John Davis.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yep.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
Thing. Actually, I'm going to change that. No.
No. Vote no. Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Abstain.
John Gofsky.
Yes.
Okay, so the entirety of number 6, including the amended generator language, passes with AJ voting no and John Alexander abstaining. We're now on to number 9. This is the Food Booth Committee Blazing
Are you
Salad.
sure you don't want to do 7? Because we do have 7. You just said it out of order.
Oh, we can do
So
7.
1, 6,
Out of
7,
order before
9,
11,
and 12.
7. That's fine. I didn't rewrite it in order. Make life simple.
Steven, I don't know how to say this, but can we just, for the membership, to make it clear, because that was a lot that we just did, what
Sure.
was the motion that we just passed
So the
in its
motion,
entirety?
so the motion that we passed is,
In the chat box.
well,
its
so no,
entirety.
motion that we passed just now is the entire number camping crew item, which
The
is
entire number 6.
which is over 2 pages long.
Not that, I'm talking about the part that we just,
And specifically,
Yeah.
one part of it is the generator language. And what we did is we adopted that generator language that's in this packet with the addition of specifying petroleum-based internal combustion powered generators as being limited to those areas. And then we specifically said that only human, battery, and solar powered sources are allowed in other locations.
okay, thank you.
And other than that, we also adopted all of the rest of number 6. And now we're moving on to 7. And 7 is the lump committee proposal. Is there someone who wants to move to adopt number 7?
I so move.
And I see Arna seconding. Is that right?
Yes, I'll second.
Moved by Paxton and seconded by Arna. Is there anyone who wants to speak to this? As either Paxton or Arna, about what the motion is before I go to member input.
I'll speak to it. And
Sure.
Go
Anna
ahead,
can
Paxton.
speak to it also. It's basically, we have the lump manual is our manual that we use to communicate with the Fair family what our expectations are of different parts of the land use management. We adopted land use management as a guiding principle of the Fair a couple of decades ago. And we, for years, have published it as a book that we could hand out to people, much like guidelines. It was adjacent to the guidelines. Well, times have changed, and we're publishing a digital one, but people are not aware of how to find it, how to get to it. And so we thought that putting something like a QR code or a link in the guidelines would get people to be able to find it, because it's a basic document of the Fair in reality. And so we envisioned LUMP, talked about it, and envisioned having just a QR code and this added little paragraph in the guidelines. And in reality, it doesn't, we just recommended adding a number 39. It was really up to the guideline people how to fit it into the guidelines, in my opinion. I'd love to see it as a QR code, but a link is just good. Thank you.
Thank you. We just lost Stephen Berkson, so I'm going to pick up until he logs back on. Oh, there he is. Good, good, good. That was fast. Here he comes.
I think Anna would probably like to talk about it too. Scott.
I will say that we decided not to put a QR code in there because we will be putting a QR code on the back of all the books. And so people can take a picture of that, go to the digital, which will have the live link to the lump manual in the digital version. Is Stephen back yet? I just let him in. I think he might have just fallen off again.
So yeah, weird thing. I don't know what happened because my laptop is battery powered and I had a brownout of some kind, but then my computer died too. So I'm actually coming back to my computer.
Generator powered.
It certainly isn't human powered. But I am coming
Paxton
back.
spoke in support.
Okay. Can you just simply ask, is there, so if somebody is planning an amendment to this now, we've not formalized this process, but if somebody is already intending to amend it, we should do that first so that member input doesn't end up becoming completely irrelevant by the amendment. Is anyone intending to amend this motion?
I guess I need to be. I just need to be clear is that I just mainly wanted to vote on this one separately. I don't actually want to amend it, so.
Okay, all right, that's, that was the main reason, since you asked to separate it, that was my main concern. So I'm gonna get back in by computer, but if somebody could look at the chat for me, is there any member input on the number 7? Member input on the lump proposal number 7?
Yes, I think we have Heather Kent, Lisa Cooley, and Anna Scott.
Okay, if you want to handle those, I will be there and more capable soon.
Heather Kent, you have the floor.
Unless something changed, I think the last number for acreage for the fair was 554, wasn't it? Or 553 point something. So if they want that much accuracy, they might want to put that number there.
We always, just for public purposes, say 500, rounded off. Consistency.
Kirsten, who's up next?
Yep. Lisa Cooley.
Hi guys. I love this, the whole lump guideline thing. And I guess what I'm asking, I know that the QR code is a great idea. And if you have it on the back of the guidelines, that's great. And I know it wastes paper and it wastes money, but it would sure be nice if like each coordinator could have maybe 3 copies so we can actually like really talk to people about these guidelines and talk to them about how important our fair site is. I know that costs printing dollars and paper and everything else, but it would be wonderful if we could print a few of those for coordinators. That's all. Thank you.
Are you talking the lump manual in particular?
Yes, I am. I know. That's what I'm saying. I realize it's probably not possible, but it would sure be nice if we could each have at least 1 or 2 copies that we could really talk to people about the plants and not digging and all the things that really are important to the land out there. That's just my opinion. Just thought I'd throw it out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we would have Jonathan Pincus. No, Anna Scott, then Jonathan Pincus.
Hi, everyone. It's Anna Scott, Chair of the Lump Committee. Wanted to speak in support of this addition of a QR code on the back of the virtual and a listing of the hypertext to our lump manual. Thank you so very much for your support.
Then Jonathan Pincus.
Yeah. I would encourage you, I appreciate the idea that the QR code on the back of the manual. For internal things, I would encourage you to rely on links. Many of us are still primitive in the area of technology. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's hard to have to bounce between 2 different things. Then we have Ann Bennett Rogers.
I support what Lisa Cooley said and Anna Scott. This is part of our stewardship at Ark Park. We talk about the lump manual and its context, and as we talk about the environment, past and present out there, and it is part of our educational mission. Thank you.
Okay, so that is jump back over here. Hold on just a second. Sorry, I've got too many things I got to manage all at once. Close that off. We have no more member input in the chat, and we go to board input. John Steinhardt, then John Alexander.
I kind of feel bad about this, but I actually oppose this change to the guideline. It's not really a guideline, and it's bad for the environment and bad for our bottom line to be printing things in guidelines that aren't guidelines. I will point out that on page 19, number 40 of the 2024 guidelines, it says more detailed information can be found in the OCF Land Use Management Plan, which is a link. So adding a whole nother section to explain that we have a link that's already in the guidelines, I think is just an unnecessary waste of paper. And we can't actually steward our land but waste things on all of our personal pet projects. So I'm opposed to this particular change. Thanks.
And am I on?
Next, John Alexander.
Okay.
You're back.
Yeah, interesting coming after that. I got to think about that one. Certainly this link could be made a lot shorter just by doing a redirect from the OregonCountryFair.org thing, but I don't think that would require an amendment, and I'm not going to make an amendment for such a thing. I think that how the fair manages areas, and this provides guidance for how we should take care of the site, does fit in with guidelines. Just want to acknowledge that the LUMP manual is providing a great framework for us to build the EAB response plan off of. So it is a hugely valuable document. So it crosses a line there. The LUMP manual does present guidelines or the fundamentals behind the guidelines by which we manage the lands, and is useful information for everybody to have. And I like the idea of coordinators all holding copies of the land use management plan.
Okay, Stephen is bouncing in and out, so I'll continue on.
I think it's me.
Arna and then Paxton. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to keep this short. We're really short on time, guys. We spent a lot of time on that generator issue. And we have some time sensitive stuff on our agenda. Besides the guidelines, we have another motion that is time sensitive too. I actually find this fine to put into the guidelines. I think it's informational about how we deal with our land. And I think those are guidelines, as John A. said. And I don't think this is all that long. It's like a paragraph. So I am in support of putting this into the guidelines.
Paxton?
I want to agree. It's a paragraph and a link. And I think it's valuable information for the rest of the Fair family. So I fully support putting it in the guidelines. And it saves us in reality printing more. So in reality, this saves trees. So I don't see that adding a paragraph and a link is going to add a bunch. Thank you.
Okay, and what we've got here. Then we go John Starnhart, AJ, and then Arna again.
I think Paxton was ahead of me.
You just
Paxton
spoke.
just
He just
spoke.
spoke.
Okay, sorry, too busy reading. I don't know if this is an appropriate way to do this because it's really not part of number 7, but I would move to amend guideline number 40 to remove the more detailed information can be found in the OCF Land Use Management Plan with a link from the guidelines if we are going to.
It's out of order.
Okay, how do we go? What's the process for this? Because we all,
so
twice.
Hang on. Well, it's actually part of a guideline change. I mean, basically, it's outside this proposal. Are you saying that this is related to this motion and you're attempting to amend it to change a different guideline for the purpose of this change?
Yes, I'm basically saying that I don't want to have.
And that would be in order to make amendment to change another guideline in order to support, say, this change in this guideline.
Okay. Can I make a motion to do that?
That guideline isn't up for review.
Well, I can't speak to that other than, generally speaking, the normal process would be anything in the guidelines could be amended by someone on the board could propose to make a change. And if he's making it in relation to this motion as an amendment, then that would be okay to do. I know.
Does he
I
have
know that.
does he have a second? I mean, guys, we're getting into the weeds on a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
simple
Yeah.
addition. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say it. Let's just either accept it or deny it, and we've got a lot of business ahead of us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So do you want to make this motion, John?
Yes, I would move to remove the last sentence of the DUF section of guideline 40 on page 19 of the old guidelines. In addition, as part of approving
Okay.
change 7.
Is there a second? You'll have to tell me. I'm still trying to come back on the computer. I'm not sure what happened there. No seconds?
No second.
Okay.
Second.
In that case, motion dies for lack of a second, and we go to AJ.
Yes. I would like to do a time check. It is 15 minutes. Looks like we have other business ahead of us. We decided with 15 minutes left that we would make a motion, and I make a motion to add we ending time at 9:30. We don't have to use it if we don't need it, but make a
Second.
motion. All right.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to extend the meeting. Is there any objection? Is there any objection from any board member to extending the meeting to 9:30?
I'm looking for the chat, sorry, or you can just take me. Chat hand.
You have an objection?
I have
extending
an,
the meeting? Because then we're gonna vote. The whole point is to save time. So that just means we're gonna vote.
I just say we table the rest of this discussion and go to the next motions and have this
Okay,
conversation.
that's totally different. All this is about whether we're gonna extend the meeting, and it's not to be discussed. So if you want to object to extending the meeting to 9:30, we'll vote on it.
Great, I object.
Are you objecting to extending the meeting to 9:30?
Without discussion.
Okay, so we'll vote. This is about whether or not to extend the meeting to 9:30. John Davis,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
No.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
No.
John Govsky.
Yes.
Okay, so the meeting is extended till 9:30 with George and John Alexander voting no. Now, we are back to, so is that all you had, AJ? You were not speaking to the motion? Move on to Arna?
I did speak to motion. I want to call the question.
You
Second.
can't, well, hold on, you can't. Well, Arna, you're up next, but you can't speak and then speak even for this thing and then call the question. So Arna, would you like to call the question?
I would like to call the question.
Would you like to second it, AJ?
Second, yeah. Third it, fourth it, fifth it.
So the question has been called for on item number 7 by Arna, seconded by AJ. This is about whether to end discussion and vote on number 7. John Davis.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
Recording in progress.
I'm gonna assess this.
Did we just lose Steve again?
No, you didn't lose me. I was just switching devices, but I'm leaving the other one
Okay.
in the meeting in case it happens again. John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
Abstain.
Kevin,
Me? Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Oh. That's why I did that. I don't know what's going on. I wonder if my computer's dying.
Yes.
Kirsten, we might have lost him again.
Steven's frozen.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no,
Oh.
I apparently was muted. So I'm down to John Alexander.
Abstain.
Abstain. And John Govsky.
Yes.
Okay, so we have ended discussion, passes unanimously with George and John Alexander abstaining. We are now voting on number 7, whether to adopt number 7. John Davis,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yep.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
No.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Yes.
and John Gofsky.
Yes.
Motion passes with John Steinhardt voting no. And now we are on to number 9. Would somebody like to make a motion to adopt item number 9?
I'll do it.
Is that John Steinhardt?
Yep.
Second.
Okay. Moved by John Steinhardt, seconded by Sandra. Is there a motion you want to put on the floor first, John?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to move to change the language and I will post it in the chat. There are 2 basic changes. One is I reorganized it because this section is titled County Regulations, and yet in the language that was proposed, county regulations were at the end of the motion. And, you know, when you start talking about food booths need to be open, that's not a county regulation. I did add stuff in all caps to say not only are booths required to be open, but also to have food to serve, because in the last few years, we've had a lot of booths that like maybe still had a drink, but no food. And that's not really what I think is meant by being open. So I move to amend change number 9 to this.
Is there a second? I can't see if there's a second. Is there any second? I'm assuming that there's none, so I guess the motion dies for lack of a second. So we are now still talking about number 9 as is. Is there any member input on number 9? Member input on number 9. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can bring myself back on the larger screen. Raise your hand in chat. I see Lisa Cooley.
Hi, you guys, I'm so sorry I keep interrupting your meeting, but as a refrigeration and ice coordinator out in the Miss Piggy lot, I cannot speak for Upper completely. But sometimes we don't have the actual trucks in place in time for a food booth to open exactly at their right time. And that is not our fault, and nor is it the food booth's fault. I know that I'm working really closely with staff to correct this problem, and I'm sure it maybe will not be another problem in the future. But I would like people to have a little more leniency and a little more understanding for the food booths who do a lot of work out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member input? Member input. Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on number 9? Raise your hand in chat. Last call for board discussion. Okay, seeing none, we will vote on number 9. Was there somebody who wanted to speak?
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't get my hand up in time. I just want
Okay,
to
go ahead.
I don't want to make a motion. I do want to acknowledge that open means serving food. I think that could be regulated through the food committee and operations if somebody is not open. You know, I don't think it needs to go in this specific space. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other board discussion? Raise your hand in chat. Last call. Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on number 9. John Davis,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Yes.
John Govsky.
Yes.
Okay, number 9 passes unanimously unamended, correct? I didn't miss it. We're going to move on now to item number 12. Item number 12 is the Food Booth Committee and Blazing Salads proposal. And is there someone who will make the motion?
I will.
John Steinhardt makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Sandra. And is there any, do you have an amendment for this, John?
Yes, I will put it in the chat. The changes are caps. We don't need to discuss generators again because it's the same language. The only other change I have here from talking to a lot of people in food booths is that the guideline has always said no amplified music is allowed. I've heard that a lot of people that are back there doing food prep like to listen to music, and I don't want to deny them that as long as we can't hear it outside of where they are. So I'm not trying to green light people blasting music that you're going to hear in the aid or the people camping behind. But if people want to listen to music while they're cooking food and nobody else can hear it, that's okay with me. So.
Thank you. Is there a second to this amendment?
Can you clarify the actual change?
The actual change is all in caps. All in caps.
This is where I first thought about the generator issue. We should be consistent.
So do you see the motion in chat?
I do. I see that.
Okay.
Is it, can I just speak? Can I?
What's the question, Arne?
There's a an inconsistency here now because we've already permitted generators in parking lots. Or in camping lots that we use. Is that different than in the parking lots?
That is different than the parking lot.
Okay.
I would say. So you ask, so Kirsten, can you speak to this? What I'm saying is booths and parking lot, which I think is separate from camping areas, including scoffs. But can you clarify?
Yeah, I see that. There's some
Pretty
gray area there because there is camping in some of the parking lots.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
definitely there's car camping.
But I'm not changing that part of the language.
that's I think a very
Well-
confusing thing to have this language here after what we just did about generators. I think that's inconsistent and will be included people.
Do you want to specify the parking lots? But again, there's car camping going on there. But
Well, so let's be clear.
and Miss
So-
Piggy's could
so-
be considered a parking lot.
Yeah, so this is the motion on the table is this amendment. And without this amendment, it says no combustion powered generators are allowed in booths or parking lot. No amplified music is allowed. And that's specifically, somebody else will have to clarify anything further from that. So we're on the discussion of whether or not to make this amendment, correct? We already have a motion and a second. So Arna, are you up?
Well, that was my question was like, this is confusing.
Okay.
Both the original motion, I guess,
Okay,
and
so we
this
need to
is a
do-
little
The
vague.
amendment doesn't have a second, though.
Does it
No.
not have, that's what I was asking. I thought there was a second. So you seconded the motion, but there's no second for this amendment yet, correct?
Right.
Okay, so is there a second to this amendment? Has anyone seconded? Okay, seeing none, the motion dies for lack of a second, and we are on to number 12 as written. Is there any member input? I see John Pincus on number 12.
I'd just like to reiterate that in some areas, grid power might be available and people should be able to use that if it's permitted by management.
Thank you. Heather Kent.
I was just looking at the actual wording from the folks who made this proposed guidelines change, and it makes me think that there must be some kind of backstory, like running generator in the parking lot to do something with their food or something, because otherwise I don't know why parking lot would come up. So it's a little hard to understand, I think, because of that.
Thank you. I'm going to raise my hand, not as facilitator, as a member. I'm just going to point out that it still says, without the amendment, still says food issues. No combustion powered generators are allowed in booths or parking lot. No amplified music is allowed. I think this is intended to address booths, but it still has the phrase parking lot in there. That's it. Any other member input? Last call for member input. Lisa Cooley. Lisa Cooley.
Sorry, I'm working on it. I think you should remove parking lot.
Okay.
Just my personal thought, because there's a lot of people that have food trucks that are out in the parking lot that actually camp in Miss Piggy and Scoff, and they need to keep their trucks kind of cold because we can't fit everything. It would just be a lot easier if you removed the word parking lot.
Sue. Sue, and I'll ask if any other members want to speak, get your hands up now because we're going to move on pretty quick. Sue?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. I just wanted to point out that there is Medallion Row, and that's where some of the generator issues arose this past year.
I missed the first thing of what you said, Sue. I'm sorry.
Medallion Row.
Oh, okay.
Medallion Row is where most of where all the food booths have a parking lot, a parking space in Medallion Row. It's close in, so they have easy access to what they may have stored in their rigs, and it also allows them to get off-site quicker.
Thank you. I see no other member input. We're going to go to board discussion. And Arna, are you jumping at the bit? Because I don't have.
Well, yeah, I was thinking of, removing parking lot from this, making an amendment to remove parking lot from this, and then noting the generator section in the camping areas, that we had already discussed. Because I do think this is a little confusing to have parking lot in it, and will people understand that, and what does that exactly mean? But I'm not quite sure I want to make that motion yet, so I'm sorry, I'm just throwing that out.
Okay. John Steinhardt.
I don't know if Sue can respond to this, but if we were to change parking lots to Medallion Row, would that address the issue? Because, I'm not that familiar with this either. And I don't have wording yet, but I would like to somehow amend this to make sure that our generator language is consistent through the guidelines.
And so I will ask, is there any objection to asking Sue for an opinion on the Medallion Row question? Any objection? You'll have to speak up unless you, okay. So I don't see any objection. Sue?
Yes.
Can you address that? Can you address whether changing it from parking lot to Medallion Row would be beneficial?
I think saying Medallion Row would clarify things.
Thank you. I got Kirsten on the stack.
Yeah, I was just going to say, would someone make a recommendation to change it to Medallion Row for clarification? Thank you.
I move to change it. Oh, sorry, not my turn.
Yeah, that's not your turn. AJ.
I move that we move the language to Medallion Row instead of parking lot.
Second.
Moved by AJ and seconded by John Steinhardt. Is there any member input on changing the language to Medallion Row? Gonna go quickly, so if there's member input, please raise your hand quickly. All right, seeing none, we'll go to Lisa Cooley.
Lisa's there.
Lisa.
Man, I have a hard time finding that unmute button. I agree. Thank you, Medallion Row. Appreciate. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member input? Last call, going fast. We'll go to board discussion. AJ, are you on for this?
That's what I have my hand up for.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay. Yep, that's what I'm making sure. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you called on me. I made that motion.
Okay.
Or I made that
so
amendment. So, yeah.
Kevin
So-
Levy. I'm on to Kevin Levy. That's what I'm trying to.
Thanks. I'll try to be quick. I am curious about the amplified music portion. Was that a big issue? I don't know if anybody can answer that because I agree with John too. I want folks to be able to have some music playing, but maybe if it's a problem, then I guess maybe it makes sense to just eliminate it. But that's just something I was curious about. I don't know if Kirsten or
I
Sue
can answer,
respond.
which is guideline 89. Food issues has always said no amplified music is allowed. I never understood how that was a food issue myself. But having talked to people, I just was thinking that we could maybe loosen that up a little bit, because I've heard that basically people do it anyway. But I'm certainly okay not doing it. This didn't come from the food committee or anybody. So.
And you're saying, just to be clear, that no amplified music is allowed is the status quo of this particular guideline?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Is there any other board discussion?
Yes.
Last call for board discussion?
Yes.
Okay, who's that?
Paxton, I'm trying to raise
Okay,
my
go ahead.
hand, but
I don't see your hand, so yeah, go ahead, Paxton.
I just one of the things that's in this the recommended change is that removing electrical appliances, and I actually am in favor of that because food booths are setting up their own battery systems to deal with their electric uses. So to me, I like the way the recommended changes are done. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other board discussion? Last call for board discussion. Seeing none, we will proceed to a vote on number 12. Unamended. John Davis.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
This is on the amendment, right? That Kirsten suggested?
Oh, you caught me fucking up because screwing up.
I was going to say,
I was screwing up.
once this was
So
over, I was going to say, wasn't that the amendment?
we did get them. I'm sorry. I lost track. A little harder on the phone. So we do have amendment to change it from parking lot to Medallion Row, correct? Has that been
Yes.
made?
Yes.
Has the motion been made and seconded?
Yes.
JJ made it. It was
Yes,
seconded by John
AJ.
Steinhardt. And there's no further discussion on the Medallion Row, correct?
No, you're
Is there-
correct.
Yeah. So we're voting on whether or not to change parking lot to Medallion Row. And then John Davis.
Yes.
Good. You're still good on that?
Yes.
Sandra on changing to
Yep.
Medallion Row.
Yep.
Yes. Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes.
Don Govsky.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed that beat there. So the motion now reads exactly the same, except Generators are not allowed in booths or Medallion Row. Now we will vote on number 12 as amended. Is there any discussion on number 12? Is there any member input? I think we've run through it, but I'm going to offer since we're back on the main motion. Any member input on number 12?
Oh, that's good.
How about any board discussion, any further board discussion on number 12? Don't feel obligated. I see AJ.
I call the question.
Okay,
No.
if nobody, does anybody else want to speak? If no one else wants to speak, we're proceeding to a vote anyway.
Let's do it. Erase my
Good.
call to vote.
Okay, that's fine. I don't, does anybody else want to speak? Last call? Seeing none, we're going to proceed to a vote. John Davis, this is on the adopting number 12 as amended.
Yes.
Sandra,
Yep.
Arna,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Yes.
and John Gowski.
Yes.
So in case I didn't say, the change to Medallion Row passed unanimously, and now number 12 is adopted unanimously. And from that, we'll move on to the next item of old business, which is the appointment of Shirley Anderson to the Budget Committee, sponsored by Sandra Bauer, George Braddock, and AJ Jackson. Who would like to make the motion?
So moved.
Is there a
I
second?
second.
So moved by AJ and seconded by Arna Shah, if my ears are telling me correctly. And
Yes.
is there any member input on this appointment?
I do. I have some, Stephen.
Who, Hillary?
Yeah.
Yeah, just raise your hand in chat, but okay, I can see.
I
the chat.
did. I did.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry. I just went to Heather, but
okay.
yeah, the board should have gotten a letter from the budget committee a couple months ago that we all endorse this nomination. And Shirley's been coming to the budget committee meetings for a couple of years now and has been very interested in all aspects of what the budget committee does. So I hope you'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member input? Raise your hand in chat.
I can speak, but I raise my hand.
Go ahead.
This is Shirley Anderson. I just wanted to briefly introduce myself to those who haven't met me. I've just been a part of the fair for about 13 years and a part of the camping mediation team. I've been sitting in on the budget committee meetings for a couple of years, and I think I can be helpful to this committee. So that's all. That was my input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other member input? Last call for member input. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on this appointment? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to a vote on the appointment. John Davis.
Could
Yeah.
we do these, since there's no discussion, could we just do these by unanimous consent? We're really running out of time.
I'm fine with it. Did you have an objection, AJ?
Yeah, the board had a long discussion about this, and we decided that on all old business that we would take the roll. It was quite a conversation, so I'd like to, we can go through it quickly, but I'd like to stick to that because it was such a big conversation when we had it months ago.
John Davis. John Davis, your vote on the appointment.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes. And thank you.
John Alexander.
Yes.
John Gowski.
Yes. Thank you, Shirley.
Shirley, the appointment of Shirley Anderson to the Budget Committee passes unanimously. Next item of old business is to move G. Stephen Pitts, Bear Pitts, from appointed member of LUMP to a member by position of LUMP.
I'm
Sponsored
happy
by
to speak.
AJ, Paxton, and George.
I so move.
Moved by Paxton. I'm not sure, am I missing something about why Teresa's hand is up?
I just wanted to thank Shirley earlier. It's okay. I got it up late.
Okay. Moved by Paxton. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Okay. And does somebody want to speak to this motion? Because I'm not sure what it means to be moved from appointed member of LUMP to a member by position of LUMP.
I'll
Me
speak
neither.
to it, and I think Anna might also speak to it because she's the LUMP person, and I'm the board liaison.
Okay, well, we'll let her go first on member input.
Okay,
Can we just
sounds
explain what
good.
we're doing?
Yes.
Can we just explain what we're doing? What does it mean to be appointed from a member of LUMP to a member by position of LUMP?
Thank you, Stephen, for such a great question. In the letter that the LUMP committee provided to the board, we noted that the LUMP committee voting members include our board appointed members and our members by position. Members by position are members appointed by the committee due to their expertise or appointed by the executive director due to their position in the organization. LUMP committee guests, those attending who are neither appointed by the board nor a member by a position, are welcome and invited to participate in our discussions and announcement items. I hope that helps you to understand what we're trying to do here. Bear would like to still provide his expertise to our LUMP committee. We would like him to do so. Thank you.
Okay, is there any member input on this motion? Raise your hand in chat. I see Anna Scott.
I am supportive of this measure as the chair of the LUMP committee and hope that you support it as well.
Thank you very much. Heather Kent.
I just have a
There's too
question.
many time left.
Does every committee, does this apply to every committee? It's part of committee best practices and it applies to every committee?
I'll
Thank
answer
you.
that.
Go ahead.
In general, no, it doesn't apply to every committee. LUMP has established this for LUMP committee. And we have a slightly different process that we've been using for years, but we still follow all of the recommended, try to follow all of the recommended committee best practices. There are optional ones that we choose to vary.
Okay.
Or that a LUMP committee chooses to vary.
But this is specific to LUMP. Is there any other member input? We'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on this change of appointment? John Steinhardt. John?
I still don't understand this at all. My understanding is that LUMP is a board committee, which means committee members are appointed by the board. They don't get to appoint themselves. So I really don't understand the point of this or whether board committees are just allowed to change the rules without board approval. I really don't understand what we're doing here.
Paxton.
Bear was appointed by the board years ago. And now he's not so much involved in the organization, but we want his expertise, and he has volunteered his expertise. He sent a letter in, I believe, that probably 6 months ago or something like that. And so we follow our own kind of rules as long as they follow the committee best practices. LUMP feels they could, they've got a traditional way of doing things and they like doing it that way. And and it doesn't, not follow the committee best practices. Thank you.
So I'm confused because.
Okay, hold on. So we're gonna run out of time here. I'm gonna ask that we consider extending to 9:45 if necessary, because we still have several pieces of business. Is there anyone who wants to make that motion?
I'll move it. So move.
Moved by John Steinhardt. Is there a second?
I'll second only because we have two time-sensitive things on the agenda that need to be done tonight.
And I just want to be sure if we're going to have discussion on this motion that we make some time. So seconded by Arna. And John Steinhardt moved, Arna seconded. Is there any objection? Can we do this by unanimous consent just for the extension of the meeting? Is there any objection to extending the meeting to 9:45?
I object without discussion.
Okay, then let's vote on whether to extend the meeting to 9:45. John Davis.
Yes.
Yeah. Sandra.
Yeah.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
No.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Teresa.
I may not make it, but okay, I'll try.
John Alexander.
No. Thanks.
John Gopsky.
Reluctantly, yes.
Okay, motion passes with George and John Alexander voting no. So we have till 9:45 as needed. I'm going to allow Anna to speak to this, but I will ask that she be brief. She's not a board member, but she's the chair of this committee. And I think that what we're trying to clarify here is that whether or not this is a good practice or a good idea for how the committee should be made up should be a question for another day. But am I correct that this is a process, a different kind of appointment for membership to the lump committee that is long-standing? Correct?
Thank you, Stephen. That is a correct. We really were hoping that the motion would read to accept the resignation for G. Stephen Pitts, Bear R. Pitts. That is the protocol in the past for members that are appointed to resign so that their seat can be filled. The motion says what it says, so I'm answering the question that this is the intention of what Bear's membership will be now, that he is wanting to resign, but still stay active with his expertise. Thank you.
And whether or not, so stay with me for a sec, whether or not it's a good practice is a question for another day, but you do not need the board's approval to, at the moment, to create a member by position in your terminology. Is that correct?
That's correct. We need
this
the
is
board
really-
to accept his resignation.
So this is really a motion, which I don't even know if we need a motion for, to accept his resignation.
We don't.
Can I just?
We don't.
We don't
Yeah.
vote on that.
Yeah.
No.
So without objection, I'm going to dismiss this motion and as being accepted, that a notice to the board that Bear Pitts is resigning from the lump committee as a board appointed member. Is there any confusion, any question, any reason to continue with this subject?
That clarifies it.
Okay, without objection, we'll move on to the next item. And we thank Bear Pitts for his service as a board appointed member to the lump and look forward to his continued service as a member by position. So the next motion is appointment of Glenn Johnson to lump committee, sponsored by AJ, Paxton Hogue, and George Braddock. Who wants to make the motion to appoint Glenn Johnson to the lump
I
committee?
so move.
Hey, Can
Is there
we
a se-
put that one off until next week or next month? Because we've got two time-sensitive things to get on here. And we could add,
Well, we didn't do that during agenda review. My advice would be if Glenn Johnson isn't controversial, either we move to postpone it or just make it quick. If there's
I
a lot
don't
of
think it's
discussion.
controversial.
So let's just try.
I vote yes.
Okay.
Let's just do it.
All right.
Yes.
So,
I totally
moved
vote
by-
yes.
Let's stop. Oh, this is only making it take longer. Moved by Paxton. Is there a second to appoint Glenn?
I
Johnson?
seconded it.
Okay, seconded by John Steinhardt. Is there any member input on the appointment of Glenn Johnson? Do not feel obligated to speak.
Yeah. Please don't speak.
Last call. Last call. Okay, is there any board discussion? Any board discussion at all? Last call. Okay, seeing no discussion, we will proceed to a vote on Glenn Johnson's appointment to the lump committee. John Davis,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
See, you still have to vote in turn. John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Enthusiastically.
and John Gofsky.
Yes, thank you, Glenn.
Okay, so Glenn Johnson is appointed to the Lump Committee unanimously. And now we're going to the motion to create an online voting work group of the board and officers to research moving the fair to online voting. John Gofsky, Arna Shaw, Sandra Bauer, AJ Jackson. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Was
second
that-
it.
That's John Gofsky
Yes.
and seconded by John Steinhardt. Is there any member input on this? Any member input on the formation of this work group?
Oh, no, but I was just asking if it needed to be mic'd.
Somebody's unmuted.
Okay.
Last call for member input. Okay, we'll go to board discussion. Board discussion on creating an online work group of the board and officers to research moving the fair to online voting. Any discussion on the board? Arna, go ahead.
I think this is a great idea. I think we've been, wanting to do this for a few years, and I think now is a good time to do it. And John Gofsky's done a lot of research on this, and he's ready to lead us into this. So I think we should go.
Thank you. Paxton.
I've also done a lot of research over the years, and I really want to move to getting done to more online voting. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Any other any other board discussion? And I would say particularly, is there anyone who has something critical to say or something to change? Otherwise, last call for board discussion. Okay, seeing none, no one has spoken against it, we'll proceed to a vote. John Davis.
Yes.
Sandra.
Absolutely.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Of course.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes. Yes.
And John Gofsky.
Yep.
Okay, the motion to create the work group for an online voting work group passes unanimously. Next item of business, allow the committee best practices committee to make changes as needed to the annual reports questionnaire. Arna Shaw, Sandra Bauer, AJ Jackson. Who would like to make this motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I heard Sandra. So moved by Arna and seconded by Sandra. Do you want to take a minute and describe why you're seeking this motion before we go to member input?
Yes. We're seeking this because the annual report was new last year, and after we did it, we found that there were some, minor tweaks we'd like to do to it that, and it seems silly, although the board passed the original language of the annual motion, the annual report. We thought it's silly to have to come back every time we want to make some small change to it and have the board approve it. So the committee would just like the permission of the board to make these changes. I do want to remind the board that this is not the best practices manual. The manual will always come to the board anytime we want to change it. This is just for the annual report.
Questionnaire.
Okay.
Questionnaire. Well, we call it the annual report, but basically it is a questionnaire. Yes.
Okay. Is there any member input on this motion? Ann Bennett Rogers.
So I'm
Ann.
I'm concerned about this. Arna said small changes and they wouldn't go to the board because the manual wouldn't change. Does that mean these would be optional? And that's not stated. And I'm also concerned on how this, I understand small changes like changing a should to could kind of thing. But I was wondering how this relates to Article 7, Section 5 of the bylaws. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Aaron Kenton.
I think this is a really great idea. I've worked with the committee best practices since it first started. And, you know, we try and guess everything that we might want to know about in the future, but it's hard. So the Anna report is really a statistical gathering mechanism to kind of keep us up on what's going on with the committees, and that information goes to the board. So if I think it's great. We should do it because there are minor things, you know, like not a good example, but say for some reason we want to know the birth date of all the chair people and we didn't have it. We could maybe ask for that without the board permission. Bad example though, because we don't care how old people are. So, all right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Last call for any member input. Is there any other member input on this motion? Seeing none, we're going to go to a board discussion, and I see John Alexander has already raised.
I love this sufficiency. I would just, I think we can just assume that you all would bring those changes as an announcement or call or a shout out to them when we accept the minutes of any new meetings, so the membership and the board is aware that those changes have been made. I don't think we need to amend.
No,
it would be in the minutes.
that would be
for
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying more than just buried in the minutes, that if that changes, I'd like to see it come to the board and the membership that this has changed.
Thank you. And Arna.
Well, I was just going to respond to John and say, yes, we can certainly do that as a notice to the board and to the membership. And I can point out, you know, any changes we make, and the letter that I send out to the committee chairs, you know, we can note the changes too.
Thank you. That's it. Is there any other board discussion? Paxton.
I'm opposed to this motion. I'm also getting a strange echo. I suspect it can be abused. That's my opinion. And I'm a little concerned about the processes that I've seen. So I'm opposed to this motion at this point in time. I would rather see this stuff come to the board before it goes out to the committee best practices things. I mean, to the report. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. That echo was, sorry, that was me switching over. I figured out that my power supply for my laptop was bad, and that's why it was glitching out. So it looks like I should have enough to be back. Arna.
It's me again, sorry. Paxton, you sometimes come to our best practices meeting. We're going to be discussing this probably at our next meeting, whatever changes, because these letters have to go out about the report. Come to our next meeting.
Is there any other board discussion? John, go ahead.
Bring Paxton towards this if we made a clause that it would be that the board and membership would be formed in informed specifically of any changes.
John Steinhardt.
I support this motion. This is just not important. I don't think the membership cares what's in a questionnaire we send to a committee. And I think the Best Practices Committee has done really good work and are continuing to, and I don't have any problem trusting them to do this.
Thank you. Is there any other board discussion? Is there anybody else who wants to speak? I'm not sure if you're opposed to this, Paxton. If you want to respond to John Alexander's question, you can raise your hand. Last call, Paxton, go ahead.
No, I'm not gonna, I'm a little, I'm just unhappy with the way it's been working out. I'm sorry, but I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other board discussion? Last call. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. So we are voting on whether to empower the Committee Best Practices Committee to make changes to the annual questionnaire for committees. John Davis.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Paxton.
No.
George.
Yes.
Kevin Levy.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes.
John Govsky.
Yes.
The motion passes with Paxton voting no. And that, I believe, concludes old business. For next month, new business includes move to redesignate the board poster committee as an operational committee under the supervision of the executive director, sponsored by John Steinhardt, Sandra Bauer, Arna Shaw, and AJ Jackson. Move to redesignate the board Peach Power Committee as an operational committee under the supervision of the executive director, sponsored by John Steinhardt, Sandra Bauer, Arna Shaw, and AJ Jackson. Move to redesignate the board Path Planning Committee as an operational committee under the supervision of the executive director, John Steinhardt, Sandra Bauer, Arna Shaw, and AJ Jackson. Appoint Anna Gonzalez to the Jill Hyman Vision Fund, Arna Shaw, Sandra Bauer, AJ Jackson. Given that we are running late, I'm going to suggest that we skip meeting evaluation tonight. Is there any objection? So seeing none. And on yeah,
To
go
not
ahead.
talk about meeting about tonight.
Do you want to speak to meeting evaluation? I mean, then we have to let everybody.
I mean, what
meeting evaluation? Go ahead and speak.
I'll keep it quick. As a result of calling the question quickly and us working on a policy that we've never discussed as a board before during new business, we just passed a policy that might place specific limitations and possibly open the door to exceptions that will impose impacts on people. And I'm just going to take this opportunity to, first of all, thank you, Stephen, for guiding us through the Roberts Rules process of wordsmithing, and Anna for trying to track all that stuff. Really appreciate it. That's not easy. This is the first time we've discussed these guideline changes as a board and then been asked to make motions and pass them with the kerfuffle of the confounding things. And I'm just going to continue to advocate that we owe it to our membership when we're passing policies and guidelines that affect them to have that discussion before it comes to old business. And I appreciate that everybody stuck with it and remained cordial. So thank you. I'm further concerned about the time we spent versus the time we would have spent having that discussion without the confines of Robert's Rules.
Okay, I will say that understand it takes a vote of the board to stop the discussion, not Robert's Rules. So the board voted to end the discussion, and that's part of how it's supposed to work. So
The confines of Robert Rules, Stephen, I'm sorry,
We're not going to go back and forth.
Yeah,
We're
so-
ending the meeting.
I will ask, since I've allowed one, I mean, Heather Kent's raised her hand for the evaluation. I think we should let others speak and
Yes.
hopefully ask everyone to be concise. Go ahead, Heather.
Sorry to speak, but I've been dying for the evaluation because I've wondered for many, many, many years why the meeting that includes guideline changes isn't either its own separate meeting or scheduled to go until 10 o'clock. Because this happens repeatedly over and over and over.
Except last year.
Thank you.
I think it didn't happen last year, but that was about it. Is there any other meeting evaluation asking anyone who speaks to be concise? Okay, so moving on, there's a special board meeting, 2025 budget board meeting, Monday, January 27th, 2025, 7 p.m. via Zoom. The next regular board meeting is Monday, February 3rd, 2025, at 7 p.m. via Zoom, and the president's piece.
Love you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. With that, the January meeting of the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors is adjourned.
Thank you, guys. That was a lot.
Everybody.
Happy New
Very
Year.
exciting.
Everybody.
Oh my God. Happy New Year.
Going to be an interesting
Everybody.
one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be generator X.
Yeah. Well, I do think the grid power question is a thing, but I also think, you know, people will just, again, that electricity is already there. No one's making it.
Well, have you seen